Hi, this is the Social Jello with Angelo show. My name's Angelo. I'm a social scientist, surfer, martial artist, and a whole lot of other things. Coming to you live from Kasai City, Japan, the Social Jello with Angelo show.
What's up, and welcome to another episode of Social Jello with Angelo podcast. I am here with Bobby Seronio Jr., coming out of, what's the name of your gym and your team?
Well, our team is Team Seronio. Our new gym that we, before it was called Seronio's Island Bred Martial Arts, but we decided because we teach so many different disciplines, we called it Triumph Fitness Center. Not only just for martial arts, but also for fitness and nutrition and everything else that comes along with it. So the gym that I own is called Triumph Fitness Center, and the fighting team is Team Seronio.
All right, and that's coming out of California. What city?
Yeah, American Canyon / Vallejo, because we were in Vallejo for over a decade, so it's like the butt crack of Vallejo and the gateway to Napa.
All right. So, for those of you watching right now, you saw the thumbnail. Sport karate for MMA with a giant question mark and exclamation point. And I felt that Bobby Seronio is a great guy to have here on the show because he trains all kinds of fighters. He trains all kinds of ages, right? I know now this day and age we have people who will specify and they'll be MMA coaches and they only teach adults. But that's actually not the majority. That's kind of a stereotype. I'll say that right now. I feel it's kind of a stereotype. Of course, if you're trying to promote your gym, it looks a lot better in this day and age on the internet to have a bunch of sweaty men with their shirts off, hitting the bags. But I'll tell you right now, if you're actually running a school, you got a bunch of sweaty men hitting the bags, all muscular. Your soccer mom's gonna walk in there with her kid and be like, not this guy.
Right.
So I felt Bob was a great person to have on the show because he runs.
I appreciate it, bro.
Program. So right now on the internet, most people, sport karate has a bad rap. Let's just say that right off the bat. On the internet, I look at the comments whenever I see anything that's not Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu
or Muay
Thai or highly testosterone MMA, like I said earlier, guys with no shirts and lots of muscles beating the crap out of each other. If it's not one of those three things, it'll just be, that's not MMA, that wouldn't work in a real fight, and they start coming after it. And especially sport karate, like whenever you see the people doing their, especially point sparring, you'll see people doing point sparring, or you see a point sparring tournament, and it'll be a slew of people laughing at it and people attacking it, saying it would never work. So before we start unpacking why people hate sport karate so much, I want to thank everyone for tuning in. And if you're one of these people that's like, this would never work, and maybe it won't, maybe it will, please put it in the comments. Put your ideas in the comments. But what I want to say before we turn this question over to Bobby is, my idea is actual martial artists, people who actually train and not just troll the internet. I think there's a distinction between martial artists and martial arts fans, and that needs to be addressed right away. So if you're a martial arts fan, I hope you can learn something from this. If you're an actual martial artist, I really hope you can take something away from this. So now, Bobby, what's been your experience? You're an MMA coach. You're an MMA coach at a high level, right? He's not wearing a Bellator hat because he wants to be cool. He got that because his son fights in the cage. He fought for Bellator. So he fought for a pro promotion. He still fights for pro promotions. So you're an official MMA coach. I talk about my credentials. I'm an MMA coach. I'm a small MMA coach. I don't train professional MMA fighters. What has been your experience as far as point sparring, specifically sport karate and MMA? What's going on here? What's the connection or disconnection going on?
Well, sport karate is that's where we got a lot of our movement from, and our quick twitch muscles and our angles from, right? And I always truly believe, if your instructor knows how to fight and teaches you how to fight, the only thing that changes is the rules, right? But not all instructors are like that. Had a great conversation with my GM Mitch, and he says, well, those kind of guys are hood guys. They come from that point because we have that dog in us, right? But sport karate, like I gotta give credit to like Wonder Boy Thompson. He comes from sport karate. GSP, Shotokan Sport Karate. Raymond Daniels, I mean, Mr. Highlight, Michael Venom Page. There's not that many of us that are out there. I mean, even look at Machida. He's taken traditional karate, flat footed with the right hand, and he made a living and became a champion off of it. So there's many things that uh, we have when it comes to movement. I know the general public, if they've never seen fighting, they see it and they look at it as tag. But what if we turn it into something else and just tag? And I think that's where the bad rap comes. But for me, there was always a bigger picture. If you can move around and you can create angles, and hit your opponent and make them miss and frustrate them to where they overextend, then that's the key, right? You look at Floyd Mayweather, before he was Pretty Boy Floyd, and he was knocking people out, and then he got smart and became the money team, right? And he was point fighting. He's probably one of the greatest point fighters out there because of the fact that he can hit you and not get hit. So but I suggest anyone that's coming from point karate or karate that's going to go into full contact, they have to have some sort of full contact training to have understanding when to sit down on their punches, when to exit the attack when you get into the red zone. Because I truly believe 9 times out of 10, a lot of the fighters just fight in the red zone. They don't know how to fight on the outside of the red zone, to make to make the fight happen, right? You either I'm ready to go, and you get in the red zone, then boom, you go to where we can dictate the fight. I always tell people if you can make someone punch at you and dictate that, or kick at you, and then we're controlling the fight. So I mean, it's a pretty tough thing, but we seem to make it happen because my guys believe in my system when it comes to sport karate and then transitioning to full contact.
And then specifically for your son, who's a professional MMA fighter, as you train, because you've been training him as your whole life, right? Obviously,
Since he was five,
he's been there since day one. Using your son as an example, how did you transition from sport karate to grappling? Where did that idea come from? And what did that look like on the mat?
Well, he's been wrestling since he was 13, and the whole deal was, I think he holds the record for the most NBL sport karate world titles. Unfortunately, there's no scholarships in that. And, and I love wrestling. And, I started teaching him how to wrestle, and then I got some good folks behind me with Coach Bobby Gonzalez. He's actually Mark Munoz's high school wrestling coach. And from there, he was wrestling. My son was wrestling. He was wrestling for Sac City, getting his way to make it to a D1 college. And right in the middle of it, he decided, said, "Dad, can we fight?" And that's where it just started. It was him. He's always been my guinea pig. Whether we be karate, we're karate guys, and we go enter Muay Thai tournaments with Fairtex, and we'd win, and just because I love Muay Thai. My goal was trying to get Muay Thai and blend it to what we love to do. Have Muay Thai and boxing complement our karate, and then have jiu-jitsu complement our wrestling. And that's my whole strategy behind all that.
And I hate to keep plugging in Kajikembo. And if you don't know what Kajikembo is, at the end of this podcast, there's a What is Kajikembo link. You can check it out. So for those of you that don't know what Kajikembo is, everything you're saying to me as a Kajikembo guy myself, it makes perfect sense, right? And I think that's another thing that needs to be brought into the conversation is when the internet sees sport karate, maybe in some cases they are looking at one style with two people on the internet that only practice that one style. In the past, this was more prevalent. I think nowadays it's not as much. I think everyone's cross-training nowadays. I don't know if I'm making a general statement. I'm gonna pull back a little bit and say most likely everyone is cross-training nowadays. But definitely for Kajikembo guys, and I know for some of you that don't know what Kajikembo is, like, oh boy, here we go. What you just talked about, that philosophy, the idea that you said, I've always trying to look about how I can incorporate Muay Thai and also mix in the ideas of sport karate and mix in the wrestling, and how can I keep mixing these things together and blend them to just be a better fighter. For some people that only focus on one thing, and I'm just going to bring in jiu-jitsu guys, they're a perfect example
Right.
of what it is. Jiu-jitsu guys love jiu-jitsu, and I love jiu-jitsu too.
And I love it too.
I coach jiu-jitsu. I do gi and
Yep.
no gi before I say what I'm about to say. Right. And I'm a brown belt Brazilian jiu-jitsu, but I have noticed that in Brazilian jiu-jitsu, at least in Japan, I can't say about the US, but in Japan, they're only do Brazilian jiu-jitsu. Like, like
Right.
most of the Brazilian jiu-jitsu guys I met, like 90% of them out here, they only do Brazilian jiu-jitsu. A lot of them don't even do MMA.
Right.
So in Japan, maybe in America, it's a little different. I know that for sure. But and especially the gi jiu-jitsu guys. Sorry, gi jiu-jitsu guys, and I'll have another podcast about to gi or not to gi later. But but they kind of come from that perspective, and I think we're talking about stylists. Well, when you talk about what you just talked about, it's like this idea. You even mentioned Floyd Mayweather in the middle of everything. You mentioned boxing, right? You didn't kind of drop boxing. You just dropped the entire Kajikembo acronym in one little, like 3 or 4 sentences, right? You had some karate, some grappling, some boxing, some kickboxing.
Right.
You threw it all in there. So I guess let's talk about how you mentioned Floyd Mayweather. A lot of people hate Floyd Mayweather because of his style. They hate that style. As a viewer, as a fan, going back to what I said earlier, the people who practice and the people who watch, why do you think people hate that style so much? The ones that hate on it.
The fans, right? Our fans, they love violence. They don't like in wrestling in MMA when someone's wrestle fucking somebody and just laying on top of them and hitting them, or you're tagging somebody in a boxing ring, right? Our fans, I love them because they make everything happen, make things possible when it comes to the paycheck and to the views and all that good stuff. But they want to see violence, and I think that's why some of them they didn't gravitate to Floyd Mayweather, and plus who he is, that speaks a lot. I don't know him personally, so I don't know if that's how he is behind the cameras, but I know, like, when I used to watch him when he was younger, man, he was knocking people out until he started breaking his hands, and he had to figure out a way to continue to fight and to stay healthy and not be punch drunk at the end of his career. And I think, you know, I don't know if it was him, but I'm pretty sure him and his team made the conscious effort and to make them understand this is boxing, this is knockout. Because like in MMA, right? I've helped a lot of people that came to me and say, "Well, how come I'm not winning in MMA?" And I said, "Well, how do you win?" They go, "Well, I have to knock them out or I have to submit them." I said, well, "Okay, let's take out the submissions. Let's take out the knockouts. How do we win now? Everything's based on points, right? And management and aggression, right? And if we can learn those other two and get away from the knockouts and submissions, because at a certain level, everyone's really good and everyone's in shape and everyone's hungry, right? And you're not always going to get the knockouts. You're not always going to get the submissions unless you get them big ass heavyweights. We have featherweights and below, so everything is fast angles and whatnot. But that's how we win. You have to be able to attack it smart and not just trying to knock everyone out or submit everybody. So and that's where kind of sport karate also comes into play. If we can dictate, we can stand up, or wrestling dictate standing up or taking down, then we have a little bit of an edge. Not a completely big edge, but we have a little bit of edge when it comes to strategy.
Yeah.
I
So
hope that makes sense.
no, that all makes perfect sense. And one of the things you touched on right there is I call it the Minuteman syndrome. Like, they want to get that
Boy,
submission.
that sounds like something in the bedroom, bro.
No, yeah, no, it is. It is something in the bedroom, right? You're a young guy. You can't wait to. It's your first time. You can't wait to get it on. You've been practicing for a long time, then you get in there and 30 seconds in, damn, right?
Bam,
bam, got that.
I'm sorry.
Sorry, I got excited. So like, but this happens in fighting, right? They get so obsessed with
Yeah.
that ending, that climax.
Yeah.
I'm gonna
Yeah.
unabashedly say it. They get so
Right. Right.
obsessed with, they get so obsessed with that they forget everything else that leads to it, and they forget that it's not all about that, right? If you need an analogy, you can keep you keep thinking about it. It's not all about that,
Absolutely. Right. They
right?
get that adrenaline though.
Yeah. So you got to remember how that what you just said, controlling the fight,
Yeah.
If you control the fight, yeah, you can get your knockout, but even more importantly, you're controlling the fight, so you can decide when that's going to happen. Where a lot of people that get obsessed with that style, and then, again, I think we're talking about styles again.
Yeah.
We're talking about people who watch MMA. I was reading Michael Bisping's book, and reading Michael Bisping's book, he was, and he admits, was not the most talented fighter. He said, I wasn't the most talented. I was the most hardworking, and I was the most hard-headed. Right?
Right. Right.
And
Right.
the fans loved that. That they loved the idea that he was hardworking and hard-headed. And he wouldn't
Yeah.
mind. He would go in there, and he did. He'd go in there and go toe to toe with Anderson Silva, knowing
Yep.
that things probably wouldn't end well. So like, but this is like a stylistic perspective, right? The fans, going back to what you said earlier, the fans love that violence.
Yep.
They love a guy who's, but at the same time, poor Bisping, right? He lost vision in his eye. He had to retire. That guy was blind. Like when I was reading
Of
his
course.
book,
Yeah. He lost his eye.
he lost his
He has
eye,
a
but
fake, he has a fake right eye.
yeah. And early on, he lost his vision. He kept that as a secret. Like
Yep.
when you reading his book,
How
he
he
kept it
got
a
past
secret.
medical? I don't know, man.
No, he talks about it in his book. It was like sometimes he wouldn't pass medical, and he'd have to draw, like they would offer him a fight. He'd look at the laws in the country, what doctors were going to get him through medical, and if the doctor, because he had his own doctor that was passing him through
Oh,
medical,
smart.
and if they made him use a different doctor, he would talk to that. He'd have his doctor talk to that doctor, and his doctor would be like, "Oh, that guy's not going to let you pass." So, I'm not taking the fight. But again, the sacrifices that guy made because of his style, right?
Right.
His style that the fans loved was just hell on that guy's body, and that's a bigger guy. Yeah, you were saying
Right.
earlier,
Right.
like, hey, with bigger guys, you got more knockouts.
Right.
With the smaller guys, you have more speed, and it's a different type of thing. But he's still a bigger guy, and he's really
Right.
taking that damage, right?
Right. And I think that's why I'm so passionate about the MMA sport, is because not only my son, but we've been doing it since wrestling, and a lot of my guys, uh, it's not as easy as saying I do MMA, because we put a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of money, a lot of time, really, because that's something you can't get back, And then for me to make the call to say, okay, that's it, you're not sweating enough, we're gonna lose some of the a percentage of our pay. So I have to make those type of calls, and then for people to just say, okay, we just do MMA. I said that's not fair to the people who work really hard for it, and this is their lifestyle. That's why for me it's always going to be a sport. It can't be a part of something, right? But it can be a certification for people who want to learn how to go through the MMA the training, even simulate the weight cut and stuff like that. I think that's a great thing. But I'm very passionate about it because of these guys. If you go on YouTube, you watch Dominic Cruz, all these guys freaking cutting weight, they're dying. And they're training and they're dying. And they're eating and they can't fucking eat. You got Aldo eating 5 pounds of lettuce a day to make freaking 135. So there's just a lot of that goes into the sport of MMA to compete at MMA. Because my gym, I don't say we're Seronio Kimbo MMA and fitness. Come on, man, that's not good, right? Because we compete in MMA. But yeah, that's why it's really dear to my heart, because I've seen these guys, man, even helping other people out, other gyms out. They're dying, man, and during training. 8 months or 8 weeks of dieting. You know that, Angelo, right? You're cutting weight.
No fun. No fun.
Missing parties, missing birthday parties and functions, and
Oh, you can go. I'll stop you right there. You can go to the birthday party. It just sucks.
It just sucks. You gotta bring your own cooler.
You gotta,
right?
you gotta.
I
used to, because I'm in Japan, right? So I'd bring a little bento box I'd bring a
Right?
bento box with my vegetables, watching everybody eat barbecue, and I just sit
Right,
there eating
right.
my steamed vegetables,
I am not
drinking
going,
my
bro.
water.
I'm not doing that. I got to protect my peace, right? I got to protect everybody's peace. We're not going. I love you guys. I'll send you some money, but I ain't going. I'm not showing up. And my family knows that. During fight week or training camp, I'm not showing up. We're not showing up. We're training. We're home resting. We're training again. We come home. We're resting and watching film. So we're not showing up. I'm not doing that.
So earlier off camera, it's funny. Another thing I want to talk about is, again, the general public's perspective, like their perception of what's happening in front of you and what's happening behind the scenes.
Right.
So I'm going to bring up Max Holloway. Max Holloway, MMA fighter coming out of Hawaii.
Absolutely.
All the country guys have a lot of love for this guy coming out of Hawaii. So the story of Max Holloway on the internet is that he taught himself MMA by playing video games. That's a narrative that I've seen even Joe Rogan say. What do you got to say about that? Because you told me off camera. You told me something new. I didn't know that. Off camera, you told me that. I didn't know that. So go.
Yeah, I think he was I believe Shotokan, but the thing with Max, man, he's a student. He's always a student. And I think the best part of being maybe a fighter or athlete is your imagination. And I know Max later on in his career, he's like, man, I don't need to train this hard. Let me play video games and let me try different moves and then let me try it at the gym. And that's being creative. Because therefore you're thinking outside the box, right? You're thinking outside the box and you're trying different moves, and then at the same time, he's not having his hard sparring to where you go into a competition, whether it's wrestling or MMA or whatnot, and he's not injured. 9 out of 10, somebody has some sort of injury that they're going to dealing with when they go into a fight, wrestling match, or whatnot. But Max has changed the narrative as far as sparring hard. I'm sure he has his days where they spar hard, but for the most part, he's building this, right, and the creativity, right, and then the confidence he has on top of that. That's pretty great, in his book, and that's what it takes for a champion to be, is to think outside of the box, and be totally devoted to what you do. Just like GSP, right? GSP was not a high school wrestler or a college wrestler. He's Shotokan, but he thought outside the box. He was doing everything from gymnastics, and then wrestling with the Canadian team, and man, he just built a legacy, and I'm sure his imagination to absorb all that stuff helped him in a lot of his fights, because he's fought a lot of dogs too, you know.
And then
But
also, whenever, and I know a lot of people at this point, this is a long time ago. I'm dating myself here. Boss Rutan, though, right? He did Kyokushin.
yeah,
He came from a Kyokushin karate background.
yep,
Boss Rutan.
yep.
So if you ever,
You can see it in his fighting, in K1, all that stuff, man. Street fighting too. That fucking guy. Hey, but he's a dog. He's kind of nuts too. So,
he is.
but in his mind, everything makes sense.
Yeah. But again,
He's
like,
a legend.
so again, going back to what we started about, right? The idea of sports karate, and maybe another thing I need to unpack here is the title of sports karate, right? When I say sports karate, yes, point sparring is one of them. Kyokushin karate is another one.
Right.
And right now, when you look at what is that? Combat karate? Is that what it's called? Combat karate?
Yeah.
Karate combat. Karate combat.
Yeah.
I flipped it. I always do that. Hey, at least I didn't say billet. What did I say? Belater. At least I didn't say belater.
Yeah, that first time I met you, you called me later.
Yeah.
What the hell is this guy doing?
Yeah. This is what happens when you read everything. You don't listen to it.
Yeah.
And English is your second language. That's the other problem.
Right. Yeah, but that combat karate, one of my friends just retired, Ross Levine. I've known him since he was 15 years old, and he's been a sport karate enthusiast. His actually one of his main instructors was Jadi Tenshin, and it's funny, a lot of my best friends are good friends. They're not Kaji Kempo folks. They come from all different because of sport karate. Sport karate was not, because Kaji Kempo folks, they I'm proud, I'm not doing that. That's tag, but Unless you fucking get in there and you get hit by a high level guy, then it's a little bit something different. And that's having to think outside of the box. And like that combat karate, I think is something good for the sport karate people who can't do MMA, because there's not that many kickboxing um, uh, events out there, right? Because before, back in the old school days, a lot of karate guys went to kickboxing. Like Dennis Alexio, all those guys. Denny. Jet. Everybody was doing kickboxing. They don't have that these days. And they have very few and far in between when it comes to Muay Thai stuff. So I think that combat karate was a great avenue for everybody to come through and test their stand up, whether you're doing Okinawan. I don't see there's not that many, there's no Kaji Kimbo guys in there, but there's a lot of guys from all over the world that's competing against each other, and I think it's a good outlet.
Yeah, and again, it's called if you want to see, it's called Karate Combat. It's a whole league. Let me see if I can share my screen real quick.
Yeah,
share.
I think Raymond Daniels is back on there.
Here you go,
My boy
Karate Combat.
Robbie Lavoie fights on there.
Karate Combat. Yeah, so yeah, if you want to check it out, Karate Combat is the venue. They got all kinds of fighters.
You see that guy that's Smiling Sam? He's an ex-UFC fighter too.
All right, so there you go. Right
there. The one to the left, over my left, that's Smiling Sam. He's an ex-UFC fighter. I don't know the other guy, but
yes, John. Sam Alvey versus Antonio Arroyo is kind of what they have going on here. But the whole thing, I guess, that I'm trying to get at is, okay, here's another question for you. So you're in there in the sport karate world. How many guys in the sport karate world only do sport karate and nothing else? Would you say, off the top of your head, what percentage do you think that would be?
I don't know, because there's a lot of sport karate people out there who just genuinely love the sport of competing, whether it's fighting or doing forms or doing weapons. I coined that all sport karate. But there's a good amount, especially on the East Coast, that just do that. I don't know if there's a lot of martial arts school who just teach sport karate. But a lot of these sport karate schools, they have a tradition with traditional martial arts. Like Wonder Boy Thompson, their guys are upstate karate. They have a lot of traditional martial arts, but now it's based on movement and angles, right? Because I truly believe, like, sometimes us Kaji Kimbo folks, we're training for an opponent that no longer exists. Back in 1947, that dude is not there no more. You got these freaking young kids training at UFC gym, knowing how to wrestle, and that's the part of evolving, So I know you're giggling because I'm right.
No, that's exactly. So you'd be surprised. No, go ahead. Continue.
No, but but I think that Kaji Kimbo is trying to make its way and trying to bring other people in to I don't know, either motivate them or to give them something to be excited about. But we definitely need to get a lot of more Kaji Kimbos out there to evolve. And not everyone needs to be a freaking world champion, but they need to be able to deal with somebody who's at the UFC gym, or somebody like my guys who can do it all, and it's not just learning jiu-jitsu, wrestling, boxing, kaji, or whatnot. It's transitions in between all that stuff, and I think Kaji Kimbo is they're bringing maybe the right people. I think Mr. Hackelman, like I said, if anybody can pull it off, I think he can pull it off. But I like what you said about what he is talking about, certification. I believe he used to have the pit certification too.
Yeah,
where he taught a lot of guys, and I know a few people who went up there and learned from him, and they were pretty successful, and they did that, but it gives people something to be proud of as well if they get a certification. Oh man, I'm pit certified, yo.
Yeah.
And to be under Mr. Hackelman, that's something else too, right?
Yeah.
So that's what I think. It's funny, like when I say that in the combat sports world, there's not a lot of Kaji Kimbo people out there at a high level that I've met, and not to say that's good or bad. It's just to say that we decided to think outside the box for the past 2 decades. That's where I've always seen myself. you know, and it was always to make sure we trained for that dude in the street, not that dude on the mat, you know. And you know that, Angelo, you know where
Yeah.
I know where you come from,
No.
young man.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know,
That was I always say, like, I don't know. Now we're deviating. I'm sorry for all my listeners. I don't whenever I said I always go on Country Kimball rants. I'm like, oh, sorry guys. But yeah, no. I always say this. I've said this on the show before, and I'll say it again. When I got into martial arts, it was not to do what I'm doing right now.
right,
What I'm doing right now is a byproduct of the evolution of martial arts and where the martial arts community has headed towards. But
right.
when I got into this, I did not get into this to submit. No, I wasn't going to submit nobody. I was a knucklehead. I just wanted to bang. I got kicked out of a taekwondo school for excessive contact. I mean, like, so like
That sounds about right.
that was me. That was
No wonder
me.
why you're Country Kimball. You're not going to get kicked out of the school by hitting somebody hard.
No, so yeah, that's where I came from, and I know it sounds like, and I hate going that route. It's like, I know everyone's like, oh, hardcore. I'm not trying to say hardcore or anything. I was just a very angry, violent young man surrounded by violence, and that's all I knew. And
Yeah.
thanks to the martial arts, I didn't get arrested. I learned how to I didn't get arrested. I stayed out of the wrong groups of people because I
Right,
was surrounded by good people.
right,
Because of martial arts, I was a knucklehead, but my instructor was a community leader. And then I started working with police officers. People, man, you would have told me I'd be working with police officers when I was a knucklehead kid. I would have.
facts, right?
Hell no. Years later, I'm working with law enforcement. I started meeting people from different backgrounds, and it changed how I saw the world. But yeah, I would have never MMA. Like, I wasn't interested in it. Like, because when I started back in the year before the year 2000, if I start my journey when I was 12 back in the 90s, UFC, man, I remember the first time someone showed me a UFC video. I think I was 12 or 13. I just started learning on my own with some black belts, and this karate black belt. It was a karate guy. He was Okinawan karate, Dominican guy, the Dominican guy, big guy. His background story. I'll tell his background. God rest his soul. He passed away a few years back, but I love his story. So the story of Rene, sport karate guy.
You got to be a mean guy to be called Rene.
Yeah. Rene, and I'll say his full name, Rene Bueno. Bueno meaning good.
Right?
Bueno means good in Spanish.
Yep,
Rene Bueno. He was a East Coast cat. His story and the way he ended up in our little fight club of people that train, we always knew he'd do karate, but the story that we had was, my dad used to say, Rene pega duro. Rene, he hits hard, and he comes from a hard knocks life, is what my dad always said.
Right.
And we're like, all right, cool, right on. And me and my cousin was like, okay, and we were young cats, 12, 13. And the story was that Rene was in the East Coast, and he saw a guy tried to jump him in an alley. Two guys tried to jump him in an alley, and one of them cracked a bottle over his head, and he took these guys out in a rage. And while he took these two guys out, the cops showed up, and Rene's not a small guy. Rene's a super heavyweight, and he's not fat, just big, well over, just a big dude, like a Brock Lesnar of a man. And he does karate, so he's not sitting there wrestling these guys. He's sitting there ground and pounding them and kicking them and stomping them. And the cops show up, and in a rage, he doesn't know, and he starts fighting the cops off too. And the story as it goes, I don't know if it's true or not, as the legend of Rene goes, it took 6 or 7 cops to finally subdue him and put him in prison for assault. Because
that's a great story. I'm stick to it.
But eventually he did his time. They cleared the people he assaulted, dropped all charges, and he still had to do some time for resisting arrest and assault on a police officer because he so but Rene's a gentle giant. Like, you hear that story, like, oh man, this guy sounds like a mean motherfucker. Very nice guy, really nice guy. So Rene, when he heard that me and my cousin are sitting around reading Jeet Kune Do books and sparring in our front yard with a carpet because we're kids. We don't got the mats.
Right.
We don't got no mats.
What's that?
What's that? We got carpet. that's
We
between
had
me
cement.
and it was like my front yard. Like, oh, we need a softer surface. We're gonna go in the front yard where my tree is. There's tree roots, and we tried sparring over the tree roots, and one of us landed on a tree root. We're like, oh man, that hurts. Let's put some carpet over that. I don't know why we thought carpet would make it hurt less, but we did. So Renee's watching all this. He's like, you guys got like no training whatsoever, huh? We're like, no, we read some Jeet Kune Do books and some judo books, and we're just going at it. So Renee was kind enough to step in and start like showing us some stuff. And one day he's like, hey guys, and he was always like, hey guys, check this out. And he was like, show us nunchucks. Like, oh man, it's got nunchucks. Nunchucks were illegal in California.
Right, they still are.
They still are. Okay, and he got some nunchucks. Check this out, man. These are nunchucks, but they don't work well in a fight because they bounce back and hit you in the face. So he was a cool guy, and he showed us our first UFC. He's like, hey man, I got something I want to show you. And like when we looked at it, we thought he showed us something illegal. Me and my cousin are looking there like, Renee's we love Renee, but Renee's kind of shady sometimes. Like, this doesn't look legal. Like these guys are in a cage, half naked, beating on each other. So and Renee's like, this is the future. And me and my cousin look at each other like, I don't know if I want to be a part of the future, man. That looks if that's the future, I don't know if I want to be a part of that. So it's just funny, like 12, 15 years later, I'm in a cage fighting. That's hilarious though. Right? When I saw it, so like the perspective, what was the whole point of that story for you youngins watching that? That's what it was. It wasn't something martial artists that come from that generation. Right now you got you mentioned you dropped a bunch of names at the beginning of this, right? Wonder Boy Thompson, you got all these famous martial artists that get into it. Another point you touched on about how there's not a lot of venues for these strikers to fight in, right? There's not even your son's story. You were saying, right. Oh, he can he's a wrestler right now and he's wrestling, but where's the future in wrestling, right? So like this younger generation of martial artists are coming in with this perspective. Now we talked about sport karate and MMA, and this to you younger generation folks, this seems irrelevant and disconnected. But to us older generation martial artists, instructors and coaches, we've been seeing that the whole time. Since MMA was not there, MMA came later for us. For you guys are coming in, MMA is first, and then you're realizing, oh, there's this thing called sport karate. There's this thing called there's another style called kickboxing. There's a difference between kickboxing and Muay Thai. Right. And you're starting to figure out what the rules are. You're kind of working backwards. Like whereas someone like you, we've been there watching it change, and now it's this, while the newer generations kind of unpacking that and going the other way around. And I think that's maybe the disconnect that the internet has with something like sport karate. Like, because Renee did sport karate and no one's gonna tell us, go ahead, good luck. Go ahead and tell Renee that sport karate don't work. So
well, I think a lot of people won't do it is because sometimes if you're not good at something and you're losing at something, you're not going to do it too much, so it has to be on your instructor as well. Everything points back to your instructor, and if they're not passionate about whether it's sport karate or full contact, the students aren't going to do good at it at all, and then everyone's going to have, like my Uncle Al used to say, assholes are like opinions, right? Everybody has one, right? And that's why a lot of people didn't like point karate or sport karate per se, is because they weren't good at it, and it takes work, it takes a lot of studying. Like when we first got into it, I was flat-footed, just like the regular Kaju guys, and try to hit hard. And then you guys got these guys from the East Coast with that freaking leg, and then they're using it like a jab, so I had to evolve if I wanted to win, and just because I lose at something doesn't mean I'm going to give up. I'm going to keep going until I win. And like when people say losing isn't an option, they're wrong. It's the first fucking option that comes in when shit is hard, right? Losing is the first option. That box is fucking there for you to check off when shit gets hard. not in our book, man. We're gonna, whether we're doing badminton or ping pong or whatever, we're gonna win. You know, and I'm gonna do, as a coach and as instructor, I'm gonna do my due diligence and learn, and so I can teach and learn, and so I can show. You know, and I think that was the whole big part of our transition. But if it wasn't for my son wanting to fight MMA, we probably wouldn't be in it. You know, we'd probably be doing still sport karate or combat karate, you know, but and then when he started doing it, my nephew started doing it, and now my hands is full. All right. So, but I love it. I think that's my calling. You know, I love being a white belt. I love teaching. I love learning from these guys. You know, but it's a hard task sometimes being dad and being coach. You know, but you know, I have to keep focus on the task at hand, because you know it's just not a game.
Yeah.
These guys, you already know, Angela, right? You can really get hurt. You know,
Yeah.
so it's just
Some
not a
serious
game,
consequences.
and that's why I think like the certification or teaching the general public, or even bringing people in to learn MMA, you know, with Mr. Halkelman, you might get some people excited, and we might find some gems out there, you know, that wanna go there. Now everyone's gonna be a little bit different, of course. You know, Mr. Halkelman, you know, he got the big guys. Not to say he doesn't have no small guys, but he got some big hitters. We got a lot of small guys, you know. But everyone's gonna be different, and if it can work, and people can come together without no fucking ego, then yeah, you know, I think definitely it can help Kaji Campbell really embrace um uh their culture of fighting. I wouldn't say mixed martial arts, right? Because we all know a lot of our Kaji Campbell stuff comes from other folks too, man. So, but as individualists that love it, and no, not everybody has to compete. But if I can defend, you know, to protect my kids, my wife, you know, myself, other than just being flat-footed and think if I kick you in the balls and I jab you in the throat, that's gonna work. That shit's not gonna work this day and age. It's just not gonna happen. I'm sorry, guys. I caught you coming to the bone. My grandpa lived with the Imperados. My uncle Ramos, Tony Ramos. You know, my lineage is high. I'm Kaji Kimball to the fucking bone, but I've evolved, because that's not gonna. I mean, that's just not gonna work. You know, we have to evolve as fighters, because this day and age, these athletes, they have everything at their fingertips. Everything's on YouTube. You know, everything is on YouTube, and I'm a firm believer what Bruce Lee says. I'm not afraid of a man that knows 10,000 kicks. I'm afraid of a man that does one kick 10,000 times, right? So it becomes a natural reaction. Like when you get up and walk, you don't fucking think about walking. So if you're practicing a technique, and all you need is three from top, three from bottom, three from the ground, and make it your own. And I think whether you're competing or not, you're a formidable opponent to defend yourself, and then mix it in with the Kaji stuff or whatever you want to do. I think that's pretty damn good.
So yeah, you mentioned a really good point. You were saying you can always check the box of losing. And I think I want to riff off of that. People say winning isn't everything, but I would say I'm going to flip that and say losing isn't everything. That is an opportunity to learn.
Yeah.
That is an opportunity to learn.
Absolutely.
And like you said, and just because you're good at, like you said, just because you're good at something, or just because you're not good at something, are you going to give up on it, right? And even me,
right.
I will flat out tell you, I do not like point sparring. I do not like it. It's not my thing. But I've done it, and I've won tournaments in it. Did I like it? I bitched and complained the whole fucking time, but it did teach me something. I did walk away with something from it, and I'm not. And we talked about this off camera once. I'm not dichotomous about my thinking. Right. Just because I don't like something, just because I don't do something myself, maybe I don't teach point sparring at my school. I don't.
Right.
But have I used point sparring as a tool? Yes. Some people need it, especially people who are scared to get hit. Especially if I'm going from like the person who never wanted to fight, has that personality type, I feel point sparring is a great way to start introducing the idea of you're gonna get hit in a controlled environment. You're gonna get hit, and you're gonna get. And I always tell them, don't worry, you're only gonna get hit once. Then you have a chance. Stop. And I think also point sparring, even though, and I told you in the beginning of this, for those of you listening, I said I don't like point sparring. Just because I say I don't like something doesn't mean I can't see the positive points in it. Let's say you're 45 or 50 years old and you still want to keep sparring. Well, guess what? Right now, who's that guy? John Wayne Power. John Wayne Power. Did I do it again? I did it again, didn't I? I read his name. I've never heard the guy's name told. I've never heard his name said in my life. I only read it. John Wayne Parr. Either way, he comes out of Australia. He's a Muay Thai kickboxer. He recently retired. And he's going through that. You can see it on his page. You can see he wants to keep fighting. He really wants to get back in there. But the thing he loves is Muay Thai. And Muay Thai is no longer kind to him because it's time to stop. And he gets back in there and he takes another hard loss. And then he still talks about how he misses training for a fight and he wants to get back in there. And I just want to say, for someone like him, point sparring is a great venue. If you're an older cat and you still want to do it, they have masters divisions in point sparring.
Absolutely.
It's a great way to still get out there. If you've never fought in your life, another person on YouTube who talked about it, and he doesn't like point sparring either, but I like his opinion. It was one of my good friends, Ramsey Dewey. He said, hey, point sparring, for those of you who hate on it, if you've never fought in your life and you've never dealt with a giant crowd, right? People talk about fighting all the time. It's one thing to fight in your gym, but even the UFC talked about when COVID hit, the fighters were talking about how it's so different without the crowd around, how some of them felt better. Like, oh yeah, the adrenaline, some of that adrenaline was gone.
You can hear the coaches too, right?
Yeah, you can hear everybody. Yeah. But that point sparring venue, the same one that maybe you don't like the rules. I know the first time I did a point sparring tournament, because that's the first time. Yeah, the first time I competed. Yeah, I competed in a MMA. It was an MMA tournament. And right before the MMA tournament was a point sparring division that I didn't sign up for. And my instructor was like, go in the point sparring. Nah. He's like, go in the point sparring. There's nobody there. It's an easy win. I'm like, nah, no, I don't want an easy win. I want to go there. It's like, damn it, just get in there. Okay. They're making me judge that ring. There's hardly anybody in there. Just go in there so that at least they have like 3 or 4 fighters so they don't have to close the division. So I went in there and did it. And I still got that. It was weird, right? Because I never fought. And when I went in there, we was in a basketball gym, and all the basketball stands were filled up. My girlfriend was in the crowd. It's a different game. So Ramsey Dewey talked about how it gives you practice. It gives you a place to practice that adrenaline dump. I still got
that's what they say sparring, right? My good friend Jotty Tension, I don't know if it's saying, but it's called point sparring, right? Because of what we're doing right now. We're having a physical conversation without talking. If I can answer your questions or you answer my questions, you're going to beat me, right? And then it's up to you and then your instructor to take that if you want to go do full contact. Then so be it. You know, it's like these high-level wrestlers. They can't wrestle all their lives because it's such a brutal sport, but they can go into no gi, right? They can do gi jiu-jitsu. That's why I fell in love with jiu-jitsu, because I'm an old guy. I can hold on to your gi. You know, it's not a high pace where we're just banging head. We're doing head-hand defense, head-hand hip defense. We're actually doing a martial arts that doesn't take a beating like high-level wrestling does or high-level Muay Thai does, right? So there's just different avenues and how you look at it. But a lot of these guys, you know, their cup is always full, and they're not students of just martial arts itself. You know, you have to be able to take what you want. I'm not going to love everything about sport karate or boxing, but I'm going to take something that's going to benefit me and my guys, right? And that's how I always look at it. You always have to look at it that way, you know. And if you don't, you're going to be one of those guys. Oh yeah, I'm just a dojo champion. That's like, you know that, right, bro?
Yeah, I met those guys. So again, we're getting close to our wrap up, but for any of you who put up with the amount of shit talking I did for the last hour here, if you can just walk away with a perspective and idea that if you're one of those MMA fans, and if you can kind of dig deeper, then you actually most likely would love, if you've never done it so far, if you've only been watching MMA and that's it, and just watching podcasts about MMA, and that's why I tried to do this podcast, I really encourage you to get in there. Do it. whether it's MMA, whether it's sport karate, whether it's taekwondo, whether it's kickboxing, whether it's jujitsu, wrestling, tai chi. I'll even throw tai chi in there. Whatever it is that you want to try, if you like watching MMA, you are going to enjoy doing martial arts. You're gonna enjoy it. You're enjoying watching it. You're enjoying two guys talk shit about it for an hour. You'll definitely enjoy doing it. It's good. So please keep an open mind and just try it. Anything you want to wrap up with, Bobby?
Get your kids in there. Get your kids in there, man. You know, that's what it all starts with the kids. You know, they're our future. Like my son, I said, man, your dad's 5'7", your mom's 5'2". You're not dunking a ball, hitting home runs. You know what I mean? We're running for touchdowns. I can teach you how to go to get a scholarship in golf or wrestling. You know, but martial arts, you know, because you and I both know there's more to it. We teach more than just punches and kicks. There's a lot of discipline. There's a lot of respect, loyalty that goes into all of that stuff. And it teaches you to understand when people say failure is not an option, we teach you that's your first fucking option, you know, but we can get past that. And we're going to get past it together, right? I'm going to show you how. I'm going to show you, you're going to cry. We're going to get mad. And then I'm going to teach you how to control that rage, you know, and then we can teach and they become young adults, you know, and then we can say, yeah, that's my guy. That's my girl, you know, shit like that. Get your kids in martial arts. You know, we can't go wrong.
So, Bobby, this comes out next Tuesday.
Okay.
And we're in July. I'm recording this on July 13th in the U.S. time. So this comes out next Tuesday. Is there any events? Anything you want to promote?
No, I mean, my nephew, like I said, Aaron Villacarlos, he's defending his 125-pound title on August 17th.
And
you know, at the Cow Palace in San Francisco.
Okay. And tickets are available. Tickets are available where?
I believe. I don't know.
Okay. All right. Google.
But I'll post it on my Facebook.
There you go.
Team Seronio Time Fitness.
All right.
You know?
Team Seronio Time. And I'm just to show people here how they can find you. We'll do this together, folks. Here, share screen. Share. I'll put this down here. Team Seronio. SK Island Red right there. It came out first. So right there on Instagram.
Triumph Fitness Center. You can put Triumph Fitness Center. Yeah. And I'll post all the ticket information there. I don't know if that's it. Fitness Center. American Canyon.
Center.
Oh, that's us. Yeah.
Okay, right there. Right there. That's okay. Right there. There it is. Right there. So look, check it out.
Yep.
I typed in Triumph Fitness Center. It came up right here. Great reviews. Best mixed martial arts school in American Canyon for all ages and levels. One of your little 5-star reviews right there. Excuse me. And then you can find it right there on Facebook.
Yeah.
So you could click right there and it'll take you to that information. Well, Bobby, thank you again for coming out to the show. I've had Bobby on once before, and if I did my job right in the beginning of this, that was the video that you can click on to learn more about Bobby and his background. And to all my listeners out there, thank you for supporting Social Jello with Angelo podcast. One of these podcasts once a week about martial arts and psychology. There's psychology in there, believe it or not. Catch y'all next time.
Okay, my brother. Appreciate you.
Appreciate you, too.
Okay, bro.